Let's rip off the bandage and speak some uncomfortable truths. This isn't just a slump. It's a full-blown unraveling. Hotels empty, airlines shrink, theme parks go quiet. But beneath the headline is something far more alarming. America is hemorrhaging the things that once made it great. Start with the juggernauts. Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt. These names aren't just lodging chains. They're national icons. When they say, international occupancy dropped 30 to 40%. If you're still watching, you know the truth matters, so join us, subscribe, and keep it alive. That's more than revenue lost. It's cultural capital evaporating overnight. Picture economics like this. A Hyatt guest from Brazil books a room. She flies Delta, rents a car from Enterprise, dines at Cheesecake Factory, buys souvenirs at Simon Properties, sees a show on Broadway, and maybe splurges at Macy's or Tiffany's. That single traveler generates dozens of jobs in hours. The cabbie, the front desk clerk, the valet, the waiter, the cleaner. Now imagine that Brazilian traveler staying in the same chain in Dubai instead. Suddenly, those jobs disappear from the U.S. economy. That's not poetic rhetoric. It's literal economic bloodletting. One guest per night lost in 10,000 rooms across America ripples into tens of thousands of missed paychecks. And those paychecks support kids, mortgages, local schools. We talk about outsourcing goods, but we don't talk about outsourcing culture. Today, $1 billion discretionary dollars are leaving American shores, quietly and permanently, because a traveler from India or Germany found an easier visa option in Canada or Dubai. They didn't just choose a destination. They chose a system that welcomes them, that sends a message America forgot to send. That message? We don't want you here. Visa fees soared, from $160 to $250, for no reason except to signal distrust. Immigration forms grew longer. The entry line snaked out the doors. Customs agents felt more like drill sergeants than hosts. Airport announcements sound less like greetings and more like warnings. Remove your shoes, place your bag on the scanner, answer truthfully. Code for you're not trusted. And let's say someone does make it through that gauntlet. Walking down Main Street, USA, they find restaurants charging 30% gratuity because service is local but prices are tourist-targeted. They see police patrolling in riot gear for even minor protests. They overhear dinner table arguments about race politics, access to firearms. They look at their kid and think, is this safe? Is this normal? It should be illegal to deny those feelings legitimacy. They aren't paranoia. They're selling reality. And the result is simple. They don't come. Or they come once, deal with it, and never return. Forget the headlines about plastic straws or cultural appropriation. Airlines are reporting tens of thousands of seats left unsold. Hotels are offering stay 3 now, get 3 free deals, as if we're staging a live-action Oprah giveaway. Las Vegas, once pulsating with global crowds, now cuts shows for lack of attendees. Disney retools to focus on domestic guests. Small restaurants in Times Square ghost their menus in Mandarin and German. Whole neighborhoods adapt, not because foreign visitors left, but because they're gone for good. And this isn't temporary inertia. Rebuilding trust takes longer than destroying it. Once economies shift from destination to pass-through, the money stays somewhere else. When Hyatt chooses to open a new hotel in Doha instead of Dallas, the jobs, taxes, and infrastructure follow. The incentives, international travelers move permanently. It gets worse the more you look. Airlines like Emirates and Qatar are not just filling their A380s. They're diverting connecting passengers who once passed through JFK to carpet landings at DXB and DOH. European low-cost carriers route through Icelandic hubs, not Philadelphia. Chinese tour groups visit Canada, not California. Even wealthy Russians and Indians no longer see America as a must-do. They're chasing warmer, simpler, cheaper, friendlier. That shift isn't hypothetical. It's already visible in 5-year growth projections. Canada is projected to grow tourism revenues by $12 billion. The UAE by $20 billion. The U.S.? Flat, maybe down. American tourism peaks are becoming global troughs. You know why this matters most? Because tourism isn't a siloed industry. It's the tip of the iceberg. infrastructure, retail services, transit, healthcare staffing, housing, small business funding, all built upon it. When tourism collapses, the rest goes sideways. Hospitals in Orlando have shifted staff from hotel medical coverage to local ER triage because uninsured tourists vanished. Airlines cut regional feeder routes, stranding rural towns. Museums, arts nonprofits, even zoos face funding cuts without international membership revenue. Retail corridors lose anchor shoppers and shutter in response. Construction slows. Service training pipeline collapse. The entire ecosystem deflates. And yet, the policy response has been impotent. A Visit USA 2025 campaign with billboards in London, a promise to streamline USDA screening, a fast-track visa lane. But nothing changed about ticket prices. Nothing changed about airport treatment. Nothing changed about the internal chaos we all live with. It's like sending a scented candle when the building is on fire. Because here's what global travelers want. Assurance, real assurance. The bureaucracy will be painless. The entry will be kind, the environment safe, the value fair, the experience dignified. And yes, they want dealing with airports to be efficient. They want to land in a clean city with trustworthy transit, with no fear of violence, with breakfast and coffee they trust. That's not too much to ask. That's basic hospitality. Right now, our global competitors offer that. Singapore, Canada, Germany, the UAE, Japan. Even Mexico is stepping up. Tourist lanes, welcoming beaches, visa-free access, security you don't tweet about. If America doesn't dramatically change, what's the end game? An economic underclass supported by service jobs. Only the service is domestic, because no one else wants come. Downtowns become cannibalized by local-only real estate. Universities lose foreign student revenue. Cities pivot, offering remote worker visas, targeted STEAM events, but lose vibrancy. Entire states recalculate budgets downward because their tourism tax revenues vanish. Governors scramble. And all the while, people tell their stories. We tried going to Miami, but it felt like a police state. Their grandchildren listen. Dad chooses Tuscany instead of Colorado. The ripple becomes a wave. Culture shifts. The brand dissolves. So let's be honest. This is no longer a temporary crisis. It's an existential threat to America's global presence. We're walking backward in tourism, and with every canceled trip, we are less interesting, less reliable, less relevant. Our soft power influence diminishes. Our global networks fray. Our cultural exports look stale next to fresher offerings. We can't just spend advertising money. We can't pretend this isn't happening. We need an internal revolution in hospitality, from visa desks to city streets, from TSA procedure to police perception, from price gouging to price parity. Because if we don't wake up and fast, America's going to be a cultural backwater wrapped in nostalgia, remembered fondly by boomers, but passed over by millennials, Gen Z, and every traveler who politely chose Cyprus over Cleveland. We can't afford to write off another decade. Let's talk about what people actually lose when the world stops coming to America. It's not just dollars. It's not just jobs. It's connection, a currency far more powerful than GDP. Because for decades, visiting the U.S. meant something. It was aspirational. It was symbolic. Coming here wasn't just about shopping or roller coasters. It was about presence. I've seen New York. I've stood at the edge of the Grand Canyon. I've walked down Hollywood Boulevard. That used to carry weight. It was part of how people around the world felt close to something bigger, more open, more free. But now, ask a traveler from Brazil or Vietnam what the U.S. represents in 2025, and you're more likely to hear expensive, stressful, cold, complicated, dangerous. Those are not impressions. They're warnings being passed along in WhatsApp groups and family chats. And every time someone tells a friend, don't bother going, it chisels a little deeper into the stone of America's global perception. This isn't just a downer. This is memory erosion. America's image, built painstakingly over generations through film, culture, diplomacy, education, and hospitality, is decaying. And worse, we're handing the sledgehammer to our competitors. Because while we're bogging people down with visa forms, fingerprint scans, secondary interviews, and insulting questions about family history, other nations are handing out 5-year e-visas in 10 minutes. While we're charging $250 for an entry stamp, Japan and South Korea are waiving fees. While we're shutting down embassies and increasing wait times to 14 months in some countries, the UAE is building lounge-equipped visitor centers. We used to lead. Now we trail. Let's talk about children. You want to understand the long-term cost of this? Look at the 10-year-old in Paris or Jakarta whose parents decide to take them to Barcelona or Banff instead of Orlando. That kid grows up with different reference points, different dreams. They'll never know the anticipation of waiting in line for Space Mountain. Never hold a greasy slice of New York pizza. Never see a real NBA game in person. They won't miss it because they never had it. And that's the point. Once the cultural baton passes to another nation, you can't just buy it back. You can't market your way out of that absence. You can't recapture their awe through TikTok and State Department pamphlets. And here's the irony that stings the most. Americans still think with a default destination. We're not. The new travel circuits, the new must-see cities, are being formed right now. Singapore, Dubai, Seoul, Toronto, Cape Town. These places are innovating in culture, convenience, and customer care. They're integrating technology, easing mobility, and prioritizing safety. And most of all, they're welcoming. They are doing what America used to do best. And what happens when we fall off that list? When we're no longer on the tour map? When influencers stop tagging U.S. cities? When travel writers stop pitching American content? When the ultimate U.S. road trip is replaced by 7 cities you must see instead? We fade. And fading, in this case, doesn't mean collapse. It means irrelevance. People will still come, sure, business travelers, some loyalists, the occasional student, but not in volume, not with excitement, not with the reverence and hope that once made Ellis Island and Route 66 and Central Park more than locations. They were symbols. Now, let's look at the irony from within. Ask yourself, how can a country so obsessed with being number one be so indifferent to being skipped? How do we pour billions into military dominance, tech innovation, and space exploration, but let our international terminals rot, our foreign visitor count plummet, our cultural goodwill dissolve? How do we celebrate freedom and diversity, yet let red tape and suspicion turn the welcome mat into a warning sign? Because that's what international tourists are experiencing now. They see TSA agents rifling through backpacks. They're told to show proof of income, explain the purpose of their visit, justify their existence. They're seeing news clips of shootings, political chaos, rising hate crimes. And their conclusion is rational. Let's go somewhere else. And when they do, when 3 million of them cancel their trips in one season, it doesn't just affect the hotel clerk or the Uber driver. It trickles down to universities, losing out on enrollment, to arts programs slashed due to tax shortfalls, to downtown districts growing quieter, duller, emptier. We don't just lose money. We lose the story we tell about ourselves. Now, let's talk about how this affects Americans. You might think, so what? We'll just focus on domestic tourism. Except, Americans are leaving, too. U.S. travelers in record numbers are choosing to vacation abroad. Why? Better value, more respect, easier entry, better healthcare coverage abroad, less chaos. It's not just international guests who feel uninvited. It's our own people. And when outbound traffic rises and inbound traffic drops, that's a sign of rot. You don't have to be a tourism economist to see it. Just go to Times Square, or Union Station in D.C., or the Las Vegas Strip. Stand there for an hour. You'll feel it. The energy is off. The pulse is slowed. The smiles from workers are more tired. The lights are still flashing, but who's watching? Because when the world turns away from you, and even your own citizens follow, who's left? There's still time, yes, but not much. Rebuilding global trust isn't about brochures and hashtags. It's not about Experience America slogans. It's about making systemic changes that restore respect and ease. Make visas affordable. Streamline entry. Treat visitors like guests, not liabilities. Invest in clean, safe, accessible public spaces. Stop assuming the U.S. name carries enough weight to offset bad policy. It doesn't anymore. You want a real fix? Start from the ground up. Imagine this. A universal tourist visa valid across the U.S. for 5 years. Airport lines that prioritize hospitality, not interrogation. City councils partnering with small businesses to bring back cultural vibrancy. Hotels offering bundle experiences, not just rooms, but meaning. A federal tourism ambassador program. Real humans at borders trained to welcome, assist, and guide. National travel days that celebrate international cultures visiting the U.S. That's how you rebuild. Not by shouting, but by showing. And until we do that, until we own our mistakes and course correct, the world will keep skipping us. Politely, quietly, permanently. Because the truth is, people don't boycott countries they no longer care about. They just stop showing up. And when that happens, the lights stay on, but the room is empty. So here we are mid-2025 in the United States, the so-called land of freedom, prosperity, and global dreams, is bleeding out in silence, not with tanks or riots, not with earthquakes or pandemics, but with something far quieter, more dangerous. Indifference. The world simply stopped caring. They stopped booking flights. They stopped planning visits. They stopped seeing us as part of the journey worth taking. And somehow we're okay with that? When did apathy become policy? When did losing billions in tourism revenue become an acceptable footnote in the quarterly report? When did we decide that letting our airports turn into ghost towns and our cultural landmarks fade into afterthoughts was just another cost of doing business? Because that's exactly what's happening. The boycott isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. It's efficient, strategic. It's economic exile, chosen by tourists from Toronto to Tokyo. And the scariest part? They're right. Why would anyone come here anymore? To pay $250 for a tourist visa they might not even get approved for? To be barked at in customs by agents who treat you like a suspect instead of a guest? To risk getting caught in the crossfire of some senseless public shooting while trying to visit a museum? Why would they spend $5,000 on a family trip to the States when that same amount buys a 5-star vacation in Italy, Spain, or Bali with better food, safer streets, and actual hospitality? And we're shocked? We're confused? Look around. New York City, once the beating heart of global culture, now has entire hotel wings mothballed. Broadway shows downsized. Immigration lines empty. Times Square packed with more billboard lights than actual tourists. Orlando, the kingdom of dreams, now struggling to fill its parks. Disney quietly cutting cast member hours. International programs slashed. The parades are still marching, but the crowds? Sparse, unenthused. Las Vegas, a city built for thrill and opulence, watches high-end baccarat tables sit vacant. Asian tourist groups, once the big spenders, have vanished. The high roller suites are dark. The chefs still cook. The dancers still dance. But the audience? Missing. San Francisco, still haunted by boarded-up downtowns, now faces a new exodus, not of residents, but of revenue. No one's coming to take Instagram photos of a city they've been told is dangerous, unstable, unclean. And when perception becomes reality, you're already done. And what do the politicians say? Everything's open. Borders are fine. Flights are running. Yes, technically. But tourism isn't about infrastructure. It's about invitation. It's about atmosphere. It's about how people feel when they see your country's name. And right now, the U.S. doesn't feel like a welcome. It feels like a warning. This isn't a temporary slump. This is structural decay. We used to host. Now we interrogate. We used to welcome. Now we surveil. We used to inspire. Now we repel. Even Canada is outpacing us, offering seamless border entry, cultural celebration days for tourists, and visa-free travel agreements with dozens of nations we've alienated. Their numbers are surging. So are Dubai's. So are Portugal's and Singapore's. And what do they all have in common? They make people feel wanted. Let's talk about what else we're losing besides tourist money. We're losing students, future PhDs, researchers, innovators. Once they came to the U.S. because it was the apex. Now they head to Germany, the Netherlands, Canada, Australia, anywhere but here. We're losing international talent. For musicians, filmmakers, athletes, chefs, entrepreneurs, all skipping America because visas are nightmares and U.S. audiences are viewed as hostile or indifferent. That's not just a cultural loss. It's an economic one. We're losing relevance. No longer the dream trip for the middle class in Asia or Latin America. No longer the honeymoon of a lifetime for young European couples. No longer the golden ticket for international families trying to give their kids the magic of America. We're even losing respect. Quietly, bit by bit, one unanswered visa email at a time. And all of this, every piece of it, is self-inflicted. The question isn't what happened. The question is, why did we let it? Somewhere along the line, America forgot that global appeal isn't automatic. It must be earned, maintained, protected. You don't stay the top destination by default, not when the rest of the world is catching up and surpassing you in service, safety, culture, and connection. But we let arrogance lead the way. We assumed we could jack up fees, add more layers of bureaucracy, make entry more invasive, slash tourism budgets, and that people would still line up around the block. We assumed America's brand was bulletproof. Well, guess what? The brand broke. And if you think it's just bad PR, think again. This collapse has real-world consequences. Tens of thousands of tourism workers laid off. Hospitality students graduating with no job prospects. Downtown business districts gutted of foot traffic. Family-owned shops closing after 40 years because their clientele never came back. And when you tell these businesses to pivot to domestic travelers, guess what? Americans aren't traveling like they used to either. They're broke. They're burned out. They're choosing Europe for better value, Mexico for better weather, Thailand for better food. They've joined the boycott, too, just silently, subconsciously. But it's happening. Now, let's get uncomfortably honest. There are people in power who want this. They believe fewer tourists means fewer foreigners. Fewer foreigners means more control. They're happy to see empty airports and quiet borders because they think isolation equals safety. They've mistaken fear for strength. But here's the truth they won't admit. A closed door is the fastest route to national decay. Isolation doesn't make a country strong. It makes it fragile, rigid, stagnant, and ultimately forgotten. You want to talk patriotism? How about rebuilding America's image with hospitality, with openness, with generosity, with pride in what we offer, not paranoia about who enters? Because let's be clear, international tourism isn't just about money. It's about mutual respect. It's about the grandmother from Nigeria who saved for 10 years to see the Statue of Liberty. It's about the honeymoon couple from Colombia who wanted to spend it in New York and got denied for no reason. It's about the little girl in Seoul whose favorite movie is set in San Francisco, but her family chose Vancouver instead. It's about stories that never happened, memories that never formed, smiles that never arrived. And the longer we go without them, the more hollow this country becomes. So what now? Do we sit back and let the silence grow louder? Let the hotels rot, the airports shrink, the culture dry up? Or do we change? Do we earn it back? Do we fix the broken systems? Cut the red tape? Train our customs officers to smile? Build real entry programs that honor guests instead of interrogating them? Do we fund arts and cultural centers to celebrate the world coming to us instead of fearing it? Do we remember what it felt like to be proud when people said, "I'm going to America"? Because we've got maybe 3 years left to turn this around before the damage becomes irreversible, before the world moves on, before the boycott becomes a norm, before the empty airports become relics, before the American dream becomes a ghost story told in other countries. It's not too late. And let's be clear, this isn't just a tourism problem. This is a trust problem, a global confidence collapse. Because when international tourists stop coming, it's not just because the hotels are expensive or the visa forms are annoying. It's because they no longer believe America is worth the trouble. That's the wound. And right now, we're not healing it. We're picking at the scab. You want evidence? Look at the empty student dorms at universities that used to be filled with bright minds from all over the world. Look at conference halls once buzzing with international business summits, now canceled or moved to Toronto, Berlin, or Dubai. Look at the Broadway shows shutting down not just because locals can't afford tickets, but because the global audience never showed up. It's all connected. Because when the world stops showing up to experience your country, that's not just a missed economic opportunity. That's an existential warning. It means your brand, your identity, is losing relevance, losing value, losing magnetism. Think of the airlines. How many tens of thousands of international seats are now flying empty or not flying at all? How many staff cut? How many pilots grounded? The ripple effects are endless when routes close. So do airport shops, shuttle services, tour operators, boutique hotels. The entire scaffolding of tourism collapses. And here's the thing no one in Washington wants to admit. You can't market your way out of this. You can't slap a new logo on a dying industry and pretend like tourists will come rushing back. You can't launch an ad campaign about America the Beautiful when the subtext is, unless you're brown, poor, or need a visa. The world sees through it, and they're choosing differently. They're choosing better. They're choosing warmth in Portugal, simplicity in Japan, openness in Canada, and affordability in Thailand. And what are we offering? Red tape, suspicion, gun violence, overpriced hotels, and immigration officers who act like every visitor is a criminal. The American tourism industry used to be one of the great equalizers, where everyone from anywhere could come, spend their money, make memories, and leave with a story. But now, the story is, they didn't come at all. And if we don't wake up soon, we're not going to just lose a few billion in revenue. We're going to lose something much bigger. Our standing, our spirit, our invitation to the world. The Statue of Liberty's torch was never supposed to burn alone. But that's exactly where we're heading. Unless we fix this. Fast,